shadows in the spotlight. The crystal chandelier cast a warm glow across the dining room of Bellamy's, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. Olivia Parker smoothed the fabric of her emerald dress, carefully chosen for tonight's dinner, a celebration of Nathan's latest real estate acquisition. Her engagement ring caught the light, sending prisms dancing across the white tablecloth. "You look lost in thought," whispered Eliza, Olivia's best friend since college, seated beside her. "Everything okay?" Olivia forced a smile. "Of course. Just a bit tired from all the wedding planning." Across the table, Nathan Reed commanded attention with his animated description of how he'd secured the downtown property everyone had been eyeing for months. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his designer suit impeccable. Several business associates hung on his every word while Olivia sat quietly, nursing her barely touched glass of champagne. "And that's when I told them my final offer wasn't negotiable," Nathan said, eliciting impressed nods from the group. They had no choice but to accept. Olivia remembered how different Nathan had been 3 years ago when they'd met at a charity auction. He'd been charming, attentive, making her laugh with silly jokes about the overpriced artwork. Now she couldn't remember the last time he'd asked about her day teaching music at Westlake Elementary. "Olivia chose our wedding venue last week," she heard Eliza mention, trying to include her in the conversation. "It's this gorgeous restored greenhouse with—" "Actually, we're still deciding," Nathan interrupted smoothly, not even glancing at Olivia. "I'm thinking the Grand Wellington would be more appropriate. Better connections for networking." The slight burn of embarrassment crept up Olivia's neck. They'd discussed this. She'd shown him photos of the greenhouse, explained how the natural light would be perfect for their spring ceremony. He'd nodded and said, "Whatever you want, babe." Apparently what she wanted didn't matter. "Nathan, could I have a word?" Olivia asked quietly when there was a lull in the conversation. He gave her an impatient look. "Can it wait?" Richard was just about to discuss the zoning approval process. Before she could respond, Nathan's phone chimed. He checked it immediately, a smile spreading across his face as he typed a response. Olivia tried to ignore the familiar knot forming in her stomach. "Excuse me," she murmured, rising from the table. No one seemed to notice except Eliza, who squeezed her hand in silent support. In the restroom, Olivia splashed cold water on her wrists, a trick her mother had taught her to calm down. The elegant bathroom was empty, offering a moment of solitude. She studied her reflection, honey blonde hair pinned in a sophisticated updo, green eyes that once sparkled with excitement, now carrying a shadow of uncertainty. When had things changed? When had Nathan's ambition begun to eclipse everything else? She thought about the Nathan who'd surprised her with midnight picnics in the park, who'd learned to play her favorite song on guitar just to make her smile. That man seemed like a distant memory. A text notification lit up her phone. It was from Daniel, Nathan's colleague who'd joined their table late. "You okay? Noticed you seemed uncomfortable." Nathan can be a bit much when he's networking. The simple acknowledgement of her feelings was startling. She hadn't realized anyone had noticed. "I'm fine, thanks for asking," she replied, then hesitated before adding, "Just needed a moment." When Olivia returned to the table, Nathan was showing everyone photos of a yacht he planned to charter for a business retreat. "There she is," he said, finally acknowledging her presence. "Honey, tell James about that restaurant in Santorini we visited last summer. The one with the amazing view." "We haven't been to Santorini," Olivia corrected gently. "You're thinking of Sarah, maybe? From your office?" A flash of something, irritation, guilt, crossed Nathan's face before he recovered with a charming laugh. Right. I meant Amalfi. Remember Amalfi, darling? We were just talking about hosting the rehearsal dinner somewhere with that Mediterranean feel." Olivia nodded mechanically, avoiding Eliza's concerned gaze. Across the table, Daniel studied his wine glass, a small frown creasing his forehead. As the evening wound down, Olivia felt increasingly invisible. When Nathan placed his arm around her shoulders for a photo, it felt like a prop arrangement rather than an affectionate gesture. His cologne, once intoxicating, now seemed overpowering, suffocating. In the car ride home, Nathan rattled on about potential investors, while Olivia watched raindrops race down the passenger window. each one carrying a question she was becoming increasingly afraid to ask. Whispers and wounds. The bridal boutique buzzed with excitement as Olivia stood on the small pedestal, surrounded by mirrors that reflected a woman she barely recognized. The wedding dress, an intricate creation of lace and silk, was exactly what she'd dreamed of since childhood. "You look absolutely breathtaking," whispered Eliza, dabbing at the corner of her eye. "Like something from a fairy tale." Olivia's mother, Catherine, circled slowly, adjusting the train with gentle hands. "Nathan won't be able to take his eyes off you." A hollow laugh nearly escaped Olivia's lips. If only they knew how rarely Nathan actually looked at her these days. 3 months into their engagement, and she'd begun to feel like a footnote in his life, a detail mentioned in passing, if at all. "I think we should add a bit more embellishment to the bodice," suggested the boutique owner. "Make it really stand out." "It's perfect as it is," Olivia said softly. "Simple and elegant." Her phone chimed from her purse, and Eliza retrieved it. "It's Nathan. Want me to answer?" "Please." Eliza's expression shifted subtly as she listened. "Uh-huh. I see. Yes, she's still trying on dresses." "No, I don't think—" she sighed. "I'll tell her." "Let me guess," Olivia said as Eliza handed back the phone. "Something came up. He can't make dinner tonight. Some emergency meeting with international investors." Catherine frowned. "That's the 3rd time this month." "It's fine. His work is important," Olivia responded automatically, the words hollow even to her own ears. Later, as Eliza drove Olivia home, a comfortable silence filled the car until Eliza finally spoke. "Can I ask you something without you getting defensive?" Olivia tensed. That's never a good start to a question. "Are you happy, Liv?" "Really happy?" The simple question pierced through Olivia's carefully constructed facade. She stared out the window at the city lights blurring together. "I'm marrying a successful, ambitious man who everyone thinks is perfect. Why wouldn't I be happy?" "That doesn't answer my question." Olivia's throat tightened. "He's just stressed about work. Once the Henderson project is complete and the wedding is over, things will calm down." Eliza pulled into the parking garage beneath Olivia and Nathan's luxury apartment building. "Just remember that you deserve someone who makes you a priority, not an afterthought." The apartment was dark when Olivia entered. She kicked off her heels, noticing Nathan's briefcase by the door. Strange. If he was at an emergency meeting, why would his briefcase be here? She heard his voice from the home office, the door slightly ajar. Approaching quietly, she caught fragments of his conversation. "I told her I was meeting investors." "No, she doesn't suspect anything. After the wedding, I'll have more freedom to travel." "Yes, I miss you too, Vanessa." Olivia froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Vanessa. The name conjured images of Nathan's sleek, ambitious marketing director, a woman who mirrored his drive and ambition in ways Olivia never could. She backed away silently, retreating to the guest bathroom where she could process what she'd heard. Her hands trembled as she gripped the marble countertop, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back seemed like a stranger, pale, wide-eyed, holding herself together by a thread. Her phone lit up with a text from Daniel. "Heard Nathan canceled dinner again. If you're hungry and want company, I'm at Luciano's with some friends. No pressure, just an option." The unexpected kindness brought tears to her eyes. How had Nathan's colleague become more attentive than Nathan himself? 20 minutes later, Olivia stepped into the warm atmosphere of Luciano's, spotting Daniel in a corner booth. He stood when he saw her, genuine pleasure lighting up his face. "You came," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," she admitted. "But it turns out I wasn't in the mood for another night of takeout and wedding magazines." For the first time in months, Olivia found herself relaxing, laughing at Daniel's stories and enjoying the simple pleasure of conversation that didn't revolve around property values or networking opportunities. When he asked about her music teaching, he actually listened to her answers, asking thoughtful follow-up questions. "You know," Daniel said as they shared a tiramisu, "the first time I met you at the company Christmas party, I couldn't figure out what you saw in Nathan." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "That's a bit blunt." "Sorry," he winced. "I just meant you seem so authentic." And Nathan is playing a role? She finished. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. Walking home later, Olivia felt a strange mixture of clarity and confusion. The evidence of Nathan's betrayal should have devastated her. Yet all she felt was a numb confirmation of suspicions she'd been harboring for months. More disturbing was the realization that she'd been betraying herself, ignoring red flags. The breaking point. The private dining room of the Azure glittered with candles and champagne flutes, the space transformed for Nathan and Olivia's engagement celebration. 50 of their closest friends and family members mingled, admiring the extravagant flower arrangements and the custom ice sculpture, a rendering of Nathan's latest development project with their initials carved into the base. Olivia moved through the crowd in her blush-colored dress, accepting congratulations with a practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. For a week, she had carried the weight of what she'd overheard, watching Nathan with new awareness, noticing how he angled his body away when checking his phone, how he volunteered for overnight business trips with increasing frequency. "There's my beautiful fiancé," Nathan announced, appearing suddenly at her side as a business associate approached. His arm slipped around her waist, fingers pressing possessively into her hip. "Gerald, I was just telling Olivia about your summer house in the Hamptons. Perhaps we could visit before the wedding?" Gerald beamed. "Absolutely. My wife would be delighted." "That sounds lovely," Olivia replied automatically, feeling like a ventriloquist's dummy, mouthing words while someone else pulled the strings. Nathan squeezed her waist. "Excuse us, Gerald. I need to borrow my bride-to-be for the toast." As he guided her toward the front of the room, Olivia spotted Vanessa among the guests, looking striking in a crimson dress. Their eyes met briefly, and Vanessa's lips curved into a smug smile that made Olivia's stomach clench. "You're being quiet tonight," Nathan murmured as they took their positions by the champagne tower. "Am I?" Olivia asked. "I didn't realize you'd noticed." A flicker of irritation crossed his face, quickly replaced by his public smile as he tapped a spoon against his glass. The room quieted. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate our engagement," he began, his voice warm and charismatic. "When I met Olivia, I knew she was special, the perfect partner for the life I envisioned." Not the love of his life, Olivia noted. Not someone who brought him joy or challenged him to be better. Just the right accessory for his carefully curated existence. "She's been incredibly supportive of my ambitions," Nathan continued. "Understanding when work takes priority. Never complaining when I miss dinners or cancel plans?" A few uneasy glances passed between guests. Even to outsiders, this hardly sounded like a romantic tribute. "I've been blessed with tremendous success this year," he said, launching into a detailed account of his professional accomplishments, referencing business associates in the room, thanking mentors and investors. Minutes ticked by, and Olivia's name wasn't mentioned again. She stood frozen beside him, watching realization dawn on the faces of her friends and family. This wasn't a celebration of their love. It was Nathan's networking event, his victory lap. "And so, as we plan our future together," Nathan finally concluded, raising his glass, "I invite you all to toast to success, ambition, and the perfect partnership." The applause was polite but subdued. In the silence that followed, Olivia felt something shift inside her, a final thread snapping, releasing her from the paralysis of denial. She stepped forward, taking the microphone from Nathan's hand. His expression of surprise quickly morphed into annoyance. "Olivia, what are you—" "I'd like to say a few words," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "About partnership. About love. About respect." The room grew still. Even the servers paused in their movements. "For months, I've been trying to understand why I've felt so hollow despite having everything I thought I wanted," Olivia continued. "I've made excuses, ignored warning signs, convinced myself that after the wedding, things would improve." Nathan's hand closed around her arm. "This isn't the time, Olivia," he hissed. She gently removed his hand. "Actually, it's exactly the time. Before we waste thousands of dollars on a wedding that shouldn't happen." Before I make a mistake, I'll spend years trying to undo. Turning to face the stunned guests, Olivia continued. Nathan has been having an affair with Vanessa, his marketing director, for at least 6 months. I've suspected for a while but confirmed it last week. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Vanessa, caught in the act of slipping toward the exit, froze like a deer in headlights. But that's not why I'm ending our engagement, Olivia said, her voice growing stronger. I'm ending it because I finally recognize that I've become invisible in my own relationship. I've shrunk myself to fit into Nathan's world, and in doing so, I've lost sight of who I am and what I deserve. She removed her engagement ring, placing it gently on the table beside the untouched champagne tower. I deserve someone who sees me, really sees me. Someone who values my dreams as much as his own. Someone who doesn't need an audience to show affection. Her eyes found Daniel's in the crowd, his expression a mixture of concern and admiration. Nathan's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You're making a scene, he growled. We can discuss this privately. No, we can't, Olivia replied calmly. Because privately, you've made it clear that I don't matter enough to be heard. She turned back to the guests, many of whom were watching with unconcealed fascination. I'm sorry for the dramatic evening. Please enjoy the rest of the party. The food is excellent, and Nathan is an exceptional host, even if he's a disappointing partner. With that, Olivia handed the microphone to a wide-eyed server, gathered her clutch, and walked toward the exit. Eliza quickly fell into step beside her, linking their arms in silent solidarity. Behind them, Nathan's voice rose, already crafting a narrative to salvage his reputation. Clearly, Olivia is under tremendous stress from the wedding planning. I apologize for the outburst. But his words faded as the doors closed behind them, and for the first time in months, Olivia took a full, deep breath, tasting something that felt remarkably like freedom, picking up the pieces. The morning sun filtered through the unfamiliar curtains of Eliza's spare bedroom, painting warm patterns across Olivia's face. For a moment between sleep and wakefulness, the events of the previous night seemed like a bad dream. Then reality rushed back, the engagement party, her public declaration, the look of fury on Nathan's face. She reached instinctively for her phone, then remembered she'd turned it off after the 20th text message from Nathan, alternating between angry accusations and desperate pleas. Instead, she pulled the comforter tighter around herself, allowing the quiet safety of her friend's apartment to envelop her. A soft knock preceded Eliza's entrance, bearing a steaming mug of coffee and a cautious smile. I wasn't sure if you'd be awake yet. What time is it? Olivia asked, her voice raspy. Almost 11. You slept for 14 hours. Eliza perched on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Olivia considered the question as she accepted the coffee. The expected tsunami of regret and grief hadn't materialized. Instead, she felt oddly light, as if she'd set down a heavy burden she'd been carrying for too long. Relieved, she answered honestly, and a little terrified. Both seem appropriate, Eliza said, squeezing her hand. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you did took incredible courage. Or incredible stupidity, Olivia sighed. I could have ended things privately. After how he humiliated you. Repeatedly? Eliza shook her head. Sometimes public actions deserve public consequences. The doorbell rang, startling them both. If that's Nathan, I don't want to see him, Olivia said quickly. Eliza peeked through the bedroom doorway toward the entryway. It's not. It's Daniel. A flutter of something, not quite nervousness, not quite anticipation, rose in Olivia's chest. Daniel, what's he doing here? He texted earlier asking how you were. I mentioned you were staying with me. Eliza tilted her head. Should I send him away? No, Olivia said, surprising herself. Just give me 5 minutes to look less like a disaster. 4 minutes later, Olivia emerged in borrowed leggings and an oversized sweater, her hair hastily gathered into a messy bun. Daniel stood in Eliza's living room, holding a paper bag from Westside Bakery and looking endearingly uncomfortable. I brought breakfast, he said, lifting the bag. Though I realize now it's almost lunchtime. And you probably already ate. And this is probably weird. His rambling broke the tension, and Olivia found herself smiling. Actually, I haven't eaten, and I love their cinnamon rolls. Eliza made herself scarce with a transparent excuse about errands, leaving them alone with coffee and pastries. An awkward silence settled between them. So, Daniel finally said, that was quite an exit last night. Olivia winced. Not my finest hour. Are you kidding? It was magnificent. His admiration was evident. Nathan's been walking around the office like he owns everyone for years. Watching someone finally stand up to him was refreshing. Is that why you came? To congratulate me on my public meltdown? Daniel's expression grew serious. I came because I was worried about you, and because he hesitated, because I've wanted to say something for months, but it wasn't my place. Not while you were with him. The implication hung in the air between them, but Olivia wasn't ready to examine it yet. I need time, Daniel. I just ended a 3-year relationship 12 hours ago. Of course, he said quickly. I didn't mean to suggest. That is, I just came as a friend. Nothing more. A new chapter. The community garden bloomed with late summer flowers, a riot of color against the backdrop of the city skyline. Olivia adjusted her camera settings, framing the perfect shot of an elderly woman teaching her granddaughter how to plant seedlings. The connection between them, gentle hands guiding smaller ones, shared smiles, the transfer of knowledge across generations, captured exactly what she'd been hoping to convey in her Urban Connections photography series. 6 months had passed since the night she'd walked away from Nathan and the carefully scripted life he'd planned for them. 6 months of rediscovery, of reclaiming spaces within herself she'd abandoned for the sake of fitting into someone else's vision. That's going to be stunning, said a familiar voice behind her. Olivia turned to find Daniel watching, her work with undisguised admiration. The sight of him still caused a small flutter in her chest, a reaction she'd stopped trying to suppress. If the light cooperates, she replied, smiling as he handed her a paper cup of coffee. Thanks for this. I lost track of time. You always do when you're shooting. His observation held no criticism, only affection. That's why I thought you might need reinforcements. They settled on a nearby bench, watching volunteers work in comfortable silence. Daniel's new position with Habitat for Humanity had connected him with this community garden project, transforming a vacant lot into a space where neighbors could grow food, build relationships, and reclaim their community. He'd invited Olivia to document the transformation, leading to her first-ever exhibition at a small local gallery next month. I ran into Nathan yesterday, Daniel said casually, though Olivia could sense his careful observation of her reaction. Oh? She was surprised by her own lack of emotional response. How is he? Same as ever. Though his company is facing some challenges after losing the Henderson contract. Daniel hesitated. He asked about you? Olivia raised an eyebrow. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're thriving. That your photography is gaining recognition. That you've never looked happier. He turned to face her fully. Was I wrong? She considered the question, thinking about the journey of the past 6 months. The initial pain had given way to growth, the emptiness to fulfillment, the uncertainty to confidence. No, she said softly. You weren't wrong. Their relationship had evolved slowly, deliberately. What began as friendship had deepened through late-night conversations, weekend adventures exploring hidden corners of the city, and quiet evenings sharing books and ideas. Daniel never pushed, never assumed, always giving her the space to set the pace. The gallery called this morning, Olivia said, changing the subject. They want to add 3 more pieces to the exhibition. Daniel's face lit up with genuine pride. That's fantastic. Which ones did you choose? I was thinking of including the sunrise series from the rooftop garden. She hesitated. And maybe the portrait of you by the construction site. If that's not too weird. His expression softened. It's not weird. It's an honor. The portrait had been spontaneous. Daniel caught in a moment of concentration as he reviewed building plans with community members, sunlight catching the determination in his eyes, the passion evident in his gestures. Olivia had captured something essential about him in that photograph. his belief that individual actions could create meaningful change. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his messenger bag. "A pre-exhibition gift." He handed her a small wrapped package. Inside was a vintage brass compass, delicately engraved and still functioning. "It reminded me of you," Daniel explained, "finding your true north after being lost for a while." The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Thank you." Their fingers brushed as she took the compass, and neither pulled away. The electricity between them had been building for months, acknowledged but unhurried. "Olivia," Daniel said, his voice low and earnest. "There's something I need to say." She looked up, meeting his gaze. "I think I know what it is." "Let me say it anyway." He took a deep breath. "I've been falling in love with you since that night at Luciano's, when you walked in looking sad and brave all at once. I've tried to be patient, to give you time to heal, but I don't want to waste another day pretending my feelings for you are just friendly." Instead of answering with words, Olivia leaned forward and kissed him, softly at first, then with growing certainty. His hands cradled her face with a tenderness that made her heart ache, so different from the possessive touches she'd grown accustomed to with Nathan. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Olivia rested her forehead against his. "I've been falling in love with you too," she admitted. "It scared me at first. How easily you see me, really see me." "You're impossible not to see," he murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're the most authentic person I've ever known." Later that evening, they walked hand in hand through the neighborhood as sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. Olivia stopped occasionally to capture images that spoke to her. Children playing double dutch on a street corner, an elderly couple sharing an ice cream cone, a community mural in progress. When they reached her apartment, the question hung unspoken between them. This time, when she invited him up, they both understood it meant something more. In the soft glow of her bedside lamp, they explored each other with reverent hands and whispered affirmations. Daniel's touch was both gentle and electric, his attention focused entirely on her pleasure, her responses, her desires. When they finally came together, Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes at the unexpected intensity of the connection. Not just physical, but emotional, authentic. Afterward, as they lay tangled in her sheets, Daniel traced lazy patterns along her spine. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She considered the question, amazed at how far she'd come from the woman who had stood beside Nathan at that engagement party. "Silently screaming to be noticed. I'm thinking about choices," she replied. "How the hardest ones sometimes lead exactly where we're meant to be." "And where is that?" Daniel murmured against her hair. Olivia smiled, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her palm. "Right here," she said simply. "Exactly right here." Outside the window, the city continued its nighttime symphony, distant sirens, the rumble of subway trains, snippets of laughter from passers-by. Olivia no longer felt disconnected from that vibrant world. Instead, she was firmly anchored within it, through her art, her newfound confidence, and the man beside her who saw her clearly and loved what he saw. As sleep began to claim her, Olivia remembered the compass Daniel had given her. True north. She'd found it not in the glittering success Nathan had promised, but in the authentic connection she'd discovered with Daniel, with her community, with herself. Some journeys weren't about reaching a destination, she realized. They were about finding your way back to who you were always meant to be.